Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Rose Writes and I write and narrate Miraculous Ladybug fanfiction. The art in my thumbnail is by Cat Saturn. Her Instagram will be linked below along with mine that I post on regularly, so please go give us a follow. Please enjoy Love Story, Part 2. Sire, care to tell me what's bothering you? No, and stop calling me sire. You're not my butler here. We're friends. Adrien muttered through his pillow that was draped across his face. Forgive me, Adrien. There are eyes and ears everywhere. Say, are you going to eat that? All formality promptly flew out the window as Prince Adrien's butler, but more importantly counsel and friend, Plagg, reached for some camembert on a charcuterie board before Adrien could answer. Be my guest. You know I can't stand this stuff. Adrien slung the pillow down by his side with a snarl of his nose. Plagg put one piece followed by another in his mouth. Does this have anything to do with Marinette? Or the fact that you don't want to marry Kagami? The hungry butler said, absent-minded, as he licked each cheese-covered finger. What? Where did you hear that? The prince choked out. Eyes and ears, my friend. You're not as sneaky as you think. Out of nowhere, a figure loomed in the doorway, taking Adrien and Plagg by surprise. Hello, cousin. The voice sneered. Felix. If you didn't know Felix and Adrien well, one wouldn't be able to tell the difference between them. Except Felix isn't as pleasant to be around, and wears a scowl on his face nearly permanently. Adrien stood to greet him, approaching him, appearing just as menacing. Felix, have you heard of knocking? Of course. I just decided not to. His expression remained blank. To what do we owe the displeasure? Adrien bit back sarcastically. Oh, nothing. Can't I decide to pay my favorite cousin a visit? On the eve of his wedding to the love of my life? Adrien attempted to keep his composure. But this was the first he was hearing of these feelings Felix harbored for Kagami. You have feelings for Kagami? You really are daft, aren't you? Kagami deserves someone much better than you, a brainless prince that doesn't appreciate her. Felix snarled, rapidly approaching Adrien, hands on his collar. Adrien made no moves to avoid him. He didn't flinch. Shouldn't you be going now? Or do you have other feeble threats to make? Adrien responded robotically, Felix's hand still on Adrien's collar. Felix slowly released his cousin, still in his face. You think you're hilarious. I can't wait to be here to watch you fail your kingdom as their king. And when you do, I'll be ready to take over. Before Prince Adrien could respond, King Gabriel's courtier Natalie popped her head in the door after a brief knock. She stood in the doorway, a commanding presence, peering at Adrien over the rim of her glasses, down her slender nose. She held a clipboard in her hands, no doubt a list a mile long of duties to accomplish before the ball that was rapidly approaching. Sire, sorry to disturb you, but... She started. No need to apologize, Natalie. Felix was just leaving. A seething Felix set his gaze on Adrien as he exited the room, with no more than a subtle head nod. If Natalie caught wind of the hostile environment, she made no comment on it. King Gabriel requests your presence in the throne room. Adrien stood still, making no effort, not matching her frantic pace. Now! And off she went, surely whisked away to bigger, more important tasks. Father. King Gabriel. A man so ruthless and unforgiving. A man that surely wouldn't understand that he would rather marry for love than status. Did Adrien dare discuss the contents of his heart with his father? If he didn't, he would succumb to a life of a loveless marriage, with the only hope being that he could learn to love Kagami. There was nothing wrong with Kagami. She was intelligent, athletic, beautiful. But for Adrien, she symbolized everything he wanted to be free of. The monarchy, rules, people telling him how to dress, where to go, when to be there, no privacy. But Marinette, she represented freedom. She was kind and understanding. She was Adrien's youth. She had similar tragedies in her life that made her relatable. He could talk to her about anything and everything. The corridor next to the throne room seemed to have expanded tenfold as Adrien walked, ready to stand up for himself for the first time where his father was concerned. Adrien crossed into the throne room threshold, confidently making his way to greet the king. He dropped to one knee, head bowed. "Father," he stated, waiting to be acknowledged so he could stand. "Prince Adrien." King Gabriel spoke slowly and methodically, motioning for the young prince to stand. "It took you quite a while to arrive, He arose, trying not to let on that his knees wobbled beneath him. "I'm sorry, father." "No matter. Are all preparations completed for the ball tonight?" "Yes, sir. Everything is going according to plan. I am looking forward to it." He debated telling his father about the reservations involving the wedding. "Be brave, Adrien. Don't be afraid." He breathed deeply to settle his nerves. "Father, your majesty." Adrien bowed his head, attempting to soften the blow. "Is the wedding tomorrow morning absolutely necessary?" He asked without making eye contact, his gaze fixed on the marble floor. "Why would you ask such a stupid question? You're smarter than that, young prince." King Gabriel stood, towering over Adrien, who felt a knot form in his throat. "Do you have any idea what marrying into the Tsurugi family could mean for us?" Adrien hesitated, wondering if he wanted an actual answer, or if the question was rhetorical. "Well, No. You only think about your petty feelings. We don't get the luxury of choice, son." The king spit out. "We are expanding our kingdom to share our greatness over multiple kingdoms." "But father, I don't love her." The hall was quiet, but somehow deafening. The king's stare permeated Adrien's defenses, and the young prince felt weak, but held his ground as his father grew closer, closing the distance between them. "You think I care if you love her?" His voice was barely above a whisper. "I care about the betterment of the kingdom. You will marry Kagami Tsurugi, but that is final. Get out of my sight. I don't want to lay eyes on you until the ball when you will smile, wave, and dance with Miss Tsurugi. Is that clear?" There was no hint of love in his eyes as he stared at his son. There used to be, once upon a time, but that time was years and years ago. "Crystal clear, your majesty." With another deep bow, Prince Adrien stalked out of the throne room and back to his own bedroom. He threw himself upon the bed. Was there any escaping his fate? He wondered what Marinette was doing at that very moment, and the thought brought a tiny smile to his face, even in his moment of despair. He would give anything to hold her in his arms one last time. Marinette had been hustling and bustling around for hours, tending to every single one of Chloe's whims in preparation for the ball. In the weeks leading up to the ball, Marinette worked her fingers to the bone, creating the absolutely perfect gown for the wannabe princess. It was reminiscent of Belle's golden ball gown from Beauty and the Beast, but even more. Bigger bustle, more Swarovski crystals, the Marinette painstakingly added by hand one by one. Ribbons running in and out, ruffles. It wasn't Marinette's usual style of dress to make. But it was spectacular and show-stopping. It definitely was something. A glamorous Chloe cooted herself in a mirror, while her handmaidens carefully crafted her hair into some extravagant updo. Marinette snuck away to the attic, her very own space to create and be alone. She slipped a dress over her own head, one that she had made specifically for tonight. Nothing could stop her. Not even Chloe. She had decided. She had to see Adrien. Her own gown clung to her, billowing out at the waist. When she walked or waltzed, she would appear to be floating. The skirt fell in shades of red and pinks like the most beautiful rose, Adrien's favorite flower. She tied her corset tightly, admiring herself in the mirror. Marinette looked out the window, noticing the sun setting. Chloe should be gone by now. She should be able to escape from here unnoticed. Marinette crept down the stairs, feeling relief at the desolate surroundings. She shouldn't have celebrated so soon. Marinette Dupin Chang! The voice rang from behind her like nails on a chalkboard. Just where do you think you're going? A startled Marinette, and also a terrible liar, struggled to remain cool. Oh, Chloe! Good evening! I thought it was a nice night for a stroll. Dressed like that? Chloe rolled her eyes, gesturing to the gown. I've been busy creating things, and I just wanted to try it on. Everyone else in the kingdom is going to the ball, so I thought I would just take a walk through the garden. Chloe looked the dress over. You know, it actually is a beautiful gown. Chloe smirked, but also sounded somewhat sincere. What was this? Really? Thank you, Chloe. Of course. It's just too bad that it seems to have a tear. What? Where? Marinette panicked a bit, spinning around trying to see the dress from different angles. Right here. Chloe took her hands from behind her back, wielding scissors. Before Marinette had time to react, snip! Chloe snipped the strings holding the corset together. Chloe, what are you doing? Marinette exclaimed. She used one arm to hold her bodice against her body, and the other to attempt to wrestle the scissors from Chloe. As the two girls flailed around, Chloe continued to chop chunks from Marinette's skirt, until it was barely anything but a petticoat. Tears streamed down Marinette's face as she fell to her knees, unable to keep the fight going. Really, Marinette, you brought this on yourself. You thought you were going to the ball? She let out an evil chortle. Please, you're barely fit to even scrub my feet. You're a peasant, a nobody. Adrien wouldn't take the time of day to notice a mousy little nothing like you. Anyways, I better take my leave. The prince awaits. She surveyed her mess she had created and smiled. And clean this up while you're at it. Then Chloe swiftly made her exit to play nice with the royals. Marinette sat on the floor for a good while weeping, the sun well beyond the horizon at this point. She summoned as much strength as she could, pulling herself to her feet to leave the mansion. She stumbled to the garden, only making it to a bench before falling and weeping once more, her dress in tatters, her self-esteem even more so. In the midst of her crying, a bright glow enveloped the garden, surrounding her with its warmth. Who's there? Marinette jerked her head up to be greeted by the most beautiful, angelic being she had ever seen. A young woman stood in a shimmering light, looking more fairy-like than human. "No need to be afraid, Marinette. My name is Tikki. You wish to go to the ball?" The voice responded with the timbre of a bell. How did she know Marinette's name? How did she know anything about her? Her head reeled from the sudden influx of information, and she felt a bit dizzy. When Marinette didn't respond, the woman approached. "Let me help you," she whispered, offering her hand to the distraught seamstress. "Please?" Marinette allowed herself to be helped to her feet, unsteady but slowly gaining balance. "There," Tikki cooed. "Now let's make you a princess. Adrien is waiting for you." Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please consider subscribing to my channel, and also stay tuned for part 3. And as always, stay miraculous!